Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Adroit Journal, issue 49 poetry reading. We're very excited to have you all here to hear our wonderful array of poets, and especially to celebrate our Gregory Djanikian scholars. Every year we choose 6 poetry scholars and 6 prose scholars who will be reading tomorrow night. The poets that we choose are all without a published collection, and you will be amazed because they are so accomplished and their work is so brilliant. And it's about time that someone publishes them. And so we're very excited to have them, as well as 3 of our wonderful, more established poets who are featured in the upcoming issue. We will, as I said, we've got a prose reading tomorrow night. We generally do 1 reading in advance of our issue, but because we have our scholars, we're doing 2, and then our issue comes out on Thursday, and we're really excited about it. And we know that you will find it just full of wonderful literature and literary criticism. So welcome. I'm going to kick off with introducing a wonderful poet, Dee Dee Jackson. And it was Dee Dee's birthday yesterday, so join me in wishing Dee Dee a happy, happy birthday. Dee Dee Jackson is the author of Moonjar and the forthcoming collection, My Infinity. Her poems have appeared in the American Poetry Review, Kenyon Review, The New Yorker, Oxford American, and World Literature Today, among other journals and magazines. She has had poems selected for Best American Poetry, Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, The Slowdown with Tracy K. Smith, and Together in Sudden Strangeness, America's Poets Respond to the Pandemic. She is the recipient of the Robert H. Winter Memorial Award from the Poetry Society of America and was a finalist for the Mehringhoff Prize in Poetry. She teaches creative writing as an assistant professor at Vanderbilt University. Please join me in welcoming Dee Dee Jackson. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Heidi. And I want to say thank you to all the folks at Adroit. And it's an honor to read with everyone tonight. And it's an honor to see the scholars here and everyone's faces. You know, in the typical Zoom fashion, I'm zooming through all the squares, trying to get a sense of everybody and see everyone's faces. I'm going to read a quick handful of poems, two that are going to appear in the Adroit, this new issue that's going to be released on Thursday, and then 2 other short poems. So I will be swift. And thank you for the birthday wishes. Also, I'm an Earth Day birthday person. I was born on the first Earth Day ever, 1970. So I feel it's pretty cool. And this seems appropriate because my first poem is about a bird. So the first poem I'll read is The First Bird. The first bird I see in the brand new year is a chickadee, and according to birders, it is now my theme bird, industrious, curious, no jukebox of melody, but instead a 2 or 3 note simple song, the dropped tones of, hey, sweetie, outside the window to the bedroom where we rest a moment, naked, our desire rooting us to each other, our ankles like anchors, your coined eyes on my Willendorf figure, my freckles like splashes of sweet vermouth. It is winter, and the heat of the room tricks us into cracking a window to allow the smallest ribbon of sunshine to touch the bed, then to move across your face like a honeyed blessing. I know the days of the calendar itch like fledglings, each at the lip of their nest, ready for flight, and that your parents told you not to wish your life away. But how esoteric of them, the old, though now we are the age they were, lip to lip, nose to nose, belly to belly. And on this cold day, I want to eat you. Yes, an excoriation of your body in the manner of the Eucharist. If you become part of me, then I will know and carry all of your suffering, and you mine. The next poem is titled "The Bell," and I should say I don't always do this, but I just want to say that my first book, Moonjar, was about the loss of a husband to suicide. So suicide as a topic that does come up in my work, and I want to say that ahead of time. I think it's just this poem, that has a reference to that, and it's a reference to the Elizabeth Bishop's partner, who ended up taking her life. So, the bell. Near the end of the day, the chickadees never hesitate to scold my entrance from the trail into Flanders Field. I take their flush and feather, tick them off with the last shards of sun and the skeletal underside of a cloudless sky. The mountains begin to silhouette, not knowing the names of the dead profiles they resemble. I am hypnotized by the sunlight. It is dusk that changes what I think I see into what is. And when I read the word lost, I read Lotta, Bishop's partner, who, like my own husband, took her life. And there I go, once again nailed by the starving sky and the tack-sharp pines to this story, despite the dying day, despite wanting to forget the dead, and instead dwell on what I might offer the world, despite turning from the recently mowed meadow of milkweed and curled dock, the empty crabapple trees and their black scowling boughs, to head back down the path, book in my arms, swallowing a scream clanging like a bell in my throat.
Mm.
The next poem I'm going to read is a poem I haven't read in a long time. I really wanted to read it. It's coming out in my new book that's titled My Infinity. The majority of the book is about this visual artist, Hilma af Klint. I don't know if anyone knows her. She was a Swedish artist around the turn of the century. This poem doesn't have to do with her work. I just mentioned that I'm really into her and her work, but this poem is a tribute. It's a elegy to a student of mine. I taught dance for many years, and she was a student who, several years after having her, she was with a partner who ended up taking her life. And so this is a tribute to her and domestic violence, not tribute to domestic violence, but thinking about it and bringing it to all of our attention again. So it's titled "The Burning Bush," and it's for Brianne Ort. From 1979 to 2016 was her life. An entire alphabet can be stuttered in a few gunshots. So often it's the boyfriend spiraling down the chamber, his words lodged in the barrel behind the bullet, fast and frenzied. We all wonder why the trash at the dump never stops burning, why the blind look to the wind. The rain stumbles outside the window, the tombe before the heavy pot of beret of storm. Cathedral de San Marco in Venice speaks two languages, Greek and Latin, and I am jealous of those with two tongues, like the white pine whose trunk cracks and whose needles whistle to the bilingual nuthatch. The sun torches the tips of the trees on a descent from the world where no woman is safe. Even the man who loved her wanted her dead. The burning bush is an invasive species, yet cardinals and chickadees flock to its red seeds and flamed leaves in the fall. I should cut it to a stump and rot its roots, but instead I admire its show of color, watching the damage as it spreads.
Mm.
I realize I am writing about chickadees a lot. I really like chickadees. We didn't have them where I grew up in Florida, so they do make appearances in a lot of my poems. Last poem tonight. Thank you all again. I can't wait to hear everyone else's work. This is a very short poem titled Halo. All right. When the forecast calls for frantic, fiasco, when the forecast calls for saints and slugs, when the forecast calls for sexton and plath, I know someone has left this earth. When the prophecy is hail, followed by tornado. When the prophecy is ripple, wing. When the prophecy is another prophecy, I drop to my knees and touch my skull to the loaf round belly of my dog and weep. When the prognosis is necrosol, granite. When the prognosis is telephone, elegy. When the prognosis is egg, caterpillar, butterfly, sky. When the prognosis is scripture, scripture, scripture. When the mechanism is knife and heart and blood. When the mechanism is two waxwings, cherry tree. When the hair, when the teeth, when the nails are compost. When you are halo, you are halo. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dee Dee. I can't wait for that new book. It's gorgeous, and that was an amazing reading. But we get to move on too. And I realized I forgot to introduce myself. I am Heidi Seaborn, and I'm the executive editor. I apologize for that. And now I get to introduce Kenzie Allen, who is the author of Cloud Missives, forthcoming from Tin House, and Haudenosaunee poet and multimodal artist. She's the recipient of the 92Y Discovery Prize, an inaugural James Welch Prize for Indigenous Poets, the 49th Parallel Award in Poetry, and fellowships from Vermont Studio Center, Aspen Writers Foundation, and INAPO, Indigenous Nations Poets. Born in West Texas, she is a direct descendant of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. Please join me in welcoming Kenzie. I have to find Kenzie.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you all at Adroit, and thank you all to the readers. I'm so excited to get to hear your work. I'm so excited to be in this sort of virtual space with you tonight. I'm going to start with a poem. Well, all of the poems in the issue are from my forthcoming book, Cloud Missives. Looks like this, got little polyhedrons on it. And there's a section in it called Love Songs. And I think love songs are a really interesting kind of poetic form. It's like the form that's not a form. So I'm going to start with one of the love songs that's one of my favorite love songs, and that I thought no one would ever publish. And thank you, Adroit, for publishing one of my favorite poems that my workshop hated. So here we go. This also harkens back to West Texas, where Solomon Lane is in Midland, Texas, and this is a love song to the alpacas of Solomon Lane. You know nothing of stars. There is a low black river bordering the field, and a sturdy little fence you arch across with your precious skull and your ludicrous eyelashes, should a child approach with carrots or careless hands. You don't know the ocean or the end of that road, the bubbling cloud of ash thrown up by dirty bombs, what a human can do to another human, or to anything else, really, that gets in its way. The piles of glittering shards left over from the jeweler's perfect cut. You don't know the way they call us gone, don't know life as illegal. You've got no concept of the delicacy of a vein, which country's lost water sends alfalfa to your bin. If there is a hum overhead, some cold flying spider crowned in a tiny green light and a single relentless eye. You need nothing of coordinates, demographics, the outline of a district, or illusion of safety. Just shears at the right time, a firm hand, a soft voice, carrots, someone on the other end of a shovel. The dense shag of your shoulders won't hold the heat of this city. How many years until you are gone? Your pen, a water feature in another speculative neighborhood with houses all bricked in the French style, starting at only 1.5 million. And I look for you, driving lonely the nights I come back to Texas, as though from here is belonging. Your jaws work idle, your little hooves muffle in dust. Would that I could have lived happy in your oblivion, not seen airplanes and mistaken them for comets, not seen so much I learned to want or fear. But teach me, sweet, soft-lipped faces, sweet, big dark eyes, how to settle my restless legs beneath me, to be quieted for what I can have. Low on the horizon, that flickering light. I know it's not a supernova. A satellite will do. And this is a poem called Elegy Against Elegy. And I kind of mentioned this in the first poem, the idea of you don't know us as gone. And a little bit of what that can refer to is for a long time, I've heard a lot of poems and throughout history about Indigenous people, usually by people who are not Indigenous, that talk about Indigenous people as though they're gone. So dead and gone, Indian elegies, I like to call them, because it's sort of like, oh, those people who are all passed away now, but we're still here. And those elegies will drive you up the wall, especially if you are in the room and it's like you're in the room at your own funeral somehow. So this is an elegy against that kind of elegy, the idea of the dead and gone. So this is Elegy Against Elegy. What I've given up has walked my path alongside me, marking time, footfall, drumbeat. We say, he's walked on, far beyond death, and we wish him good spirits, good journey. When I walk on, let me walk on. This is an elegy against elegy, a song against the song of our demise. Let go the need for ghosts as memory. Behind glass, quicksilvered, remembered, even standing before you, we are not dead and gone. This is an elegy against lamentation, which we know will succeed only by its nature, where what's lost can be lost again and never returned, not in the light of day, not in the light you take with you. Those who have left me so much. They are walking on. I walk among all our relations, the hooved ones and the flying ones, and the ones who swim into cool, deep waters, and the ones who blanket the grasses in their multitudes, who carry their children's children even in the womb of their mothers. I walk among the garden where our sisters' fruits nourish us. They wrap their arms around any trellis or stand straight and tall, or creep along the ground with their gourds, their treasures, which last months and months in the bitter cold. Marvel at this miracle. Petroglyphs survive thousands of years of weather and point the way past dangerous rapids. Painted water monster as more than story, a teaching. Extinction is not an Indigenous word. This story goes on. Though he may crackle the ground in his growing regard, I walk easy under brother sun's light. He crosses oceans, kisses each edge of sky endless. As grandmother moon casts the world in silver, she shapes every shoreline as she goes along. I welcome her into my body. I leave out a plate for my ancestors. I ask their advice in dreams. Once, My grandmother came to me and said in a voice warm and alive, "What will you give back?" You mourn her passing long before she's gone, she who raised you up from her own clay and loam. Her skirts cover your fields in green pastures. She is still here to be loved, her song as gentle, enduring wind, carrying each seed to new beginnings. This is an elegy against elegy. This is a celebration. Somewhere in a field, the bones dropped lightly to earth after every rainfall. The sweetgrass bloomed for miles. Yowanko, thank you.
Wow, that was really stunning. Thank you so much, Kenzie. Thank you for sharing that. I thought that line, "You mourn her passing, but long before she's gone," is something we all do. And that was really, really gorgeous. Well, you're in for a treat. We are now going to introduce the first of our 6 Djanikian scholars. And just for those of you who joined late, these are all extraordinary poets who have yet to have a published collection. So editors, pay attention. The first up is Sid Wesley. Sid is a poet and artist from the Bay Area, an MFA candidate in poetry at Washington University in St. Louis. Their work has been supported and/or published by Lambda Literary, Frontier Poetry, Rejected Lit, and others. They also write music reviews. Welcome, Sid.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and thank you, Adroit, and congrats to all of my fellow scholars. I'm going to read 2 poems that are coming out in this issue and then 2 that are not. The first is called Violet and Incommensurate. The length of my suffering is the length of my arms. At the end of my arms are my 2 hands, which are small, scarred, and ugly. I make things with my hands, things like poems, and I destroy things with my hands, like the mosquito at my window, which I've crushed and disposed of with the rest of my trash. People want to compare their suffering to mine, theirs being more beautiful or well behaved like dogs at a show with little red ribbons. At the Peace Park in Hiroshima, there are shadows burned into concrete from the nuclear blast. Suffering is the size of the shadows of the dead. My family wasn't in Hiroshima at the time of the explosion. My family was in America, safe, in camps, in the Idaho desert, and the Oregon plains. And then the second one is also coming out with the Adroit issue. This is called Elegy. Elegy. At the Peace Park, I find I can only understand death in approximation. I see a shadow. I imagine a body. I hear a child. I imagine a history. The sky is a long gray sea, unending. I am not in Japan, but Pismo Beach. Wednesday fucked up. I didn't think about death. Wanted to make out with all my friends. Today is Trans Day of Remembrance. Memory is a container, all the dead trans people stuffed inside. All the dead trans people don't care if you're remembering them, I think. They're dead. But maybe that's too cruel. If not to memory, where do they go? Waves lap at the shore, or a murmuration in the gray sky. At the service, my father recreates my grandmother's life. her emigration from England, her hatred of America, her laughter. She becomes more alive to me as she becomes more dead. My mother's mother was interned during World War II in a camp called Minidoka. When she died, I felt a whole history had enclosed itself. When my father's mother died, it felt different, less significant. When Dylan died, my chest opened and I could not control the seams that split. Of course, we can't spend our entire lives in our heads, in the past, even to resurrect those we love. It's better that my grandparents are dead, better for me at least, less guilt to bear. Have we already established my cruelty? I wish, in fact, I could be crueler to those I love. My grandmother's funeral is makeshift. My family, my girlfriend, my cousins, my dog, her house off a golf course on the California coast. For hours, I walk alone on the beach. I smoke some weed to make the ghosts hospitable. It doesn't matter how I feel about them. They're here, even the ones I don't know. When I began transitioning, my mother began grieving her eldest daughter. Perhaps I sit among her parents, among the ghosts of her mind. Perhaps my ghosts, too, are my own creations. I find ash in the hollow of my cheek, ash in the water, ash in the air. And then I'm going to read two that aren't in this issue, a little lighter. This one's called No Wave, which refers to like a musical movement in New York in the 70s. No Wave. Texture over melody. I've been feeling wrong, but the feeling is what matters. Heavy distortion, thick layers of fuzz. New York's flooding again. I'm in a little glass box and the rain is getting into my dreams. Water like sound. I'm in the shower, sitting with my knees crossed, feeling like Sofia Coppola, looking at my girlish body. Girls are so beautiful. I'm so beautiful. I created a body in my imagination and then I made it real. Gender's over. It's all fashion now. Nonsense reigns supreme. I'm nothing but a collection of stuff. A Korg Volca Beats machine, Newports flattened on the sidewalk I don't smoke but like to look at. My little blue slippers. Beep, beep. I can hear Rosa Yemen. I can't understand her, but that's not the point. The floods were biblical, David said. In August, I came out of a basement in Queens, and the sky was purple and silver, falling down all around me. The water came out of the sky and touched my skin, which was new skin. In the club, the music was also rain, and the people, animals all around me. There was sweat and lightning in the sound, and you touching me everywhere with your cold hands. And then last one here. This one's called Musik Concrète. I am not dealing in intentions, but in experiments. So I never know how the poem is going to end, just like I don't have a clue how many sex changes I'll get. Each year, the technology gets better for getting hotter, taking off nipples, sewing them back on, injecting hormones, modulating the sound and BPM of the track. B kisses my nipples to turn me on. I can't feel it, but ideas are sexier than sensations anyways. There is freedom in form if you're willing to change it, unlike a sonnet with its 14 lines like a little cage. Some man argues with me that there is no freedom without a determinate structure, but to him I say, burn the house down and build something new. For work, E stages, $1 million apartments on the Upper East Side. Every day he makes homes and takes them apart. E and C are fucking in the room next to mine. Good for them, I think. I'm attached to sounds, the jackhammer outside, C and E and B and me, the dogs barking at each other at 3 a.m., the planes flying in and out of LaGuardia. Even when it's quiet, it's not silent. There is always noise. I can hear the sound of my heart pumping my blood. Thank you.
That was so gorgeous. And I love I never know how the poem is going to end. Isn't that the truth? Next, I'd like to introduce Edith Rodriguez, who is an Upper Darby poet and copywriter, hardcore Bostella drinker, and nonviolent Bay Hive member. Her debut chapbook, We the Spirits, won grand prize in the 2022 Button Poetry Chapbook Contest and comes out this July. Edith has received fellowships from the Hurston Wright Foundation, the Watering Hole, Brooklyn Poets, and elsewhere. Her work is published in Obsidian, The Offing, Torch Literary Arts, and of course now in the Adroit Journal. Please welcome Edith Rodriguez.
Thank you for that introduction. I am going to read 4 poems to, yes, nonviolent Beehive member. I just need to make that known. I come in peace. Yeah, I'm going to read 4 poems, 2 from this upcoming issue of the Adroit Journal. Where do I want to start? That's the question. I'm going to start actually with the poem that I've written, the most recent. It's called Self-Portrait As. I spin in the glinting mirror and set up the tripod. Perch on my favorite stool as the camera flinches. The shutter reluctantly shudders. I understand. I wince at the snapping sound of capture, of something this beastly in a dress. But I return to the lens as even the window light evades me. I return because when beasts go extinct, the people ask for pictures. The sun dances around the stool and I chase it. Tilt my chin, shift my shoulder. There, quickly. Smize, snap, the lens cracks. My smile splits down the middle. There's a man in my head saying, this one is too big for capture. There's a man in my comments echoing the man in my head. The voices are mine. The body is mine too. I must act like it. I pose again, tilt my chin, lengthen my back. I snatch light clean out the air with a shift of my shoulder. There's a man in my head gagged and hogtied to a chair. The beast cosplays as a woman. The woman cosplays as photogenic, as photorealistic, as a photon ricocheting light between the lens and her skin. Now her fur is not grown, it's worn. A warning of hair turned mink accessory slipping down her shoulder. She is still a beast, still mid-pose and trembling, still refusing to go extinct. That is Self-Portrait As. And next I'm gonna read this poem. It's called Cater to Me. There are just some songs. You ever get to a part of a lyric and you're like, I don't know if I can sing this one like with my full chest. Like I might have to just be silent for this part of the song and come back in the chorus. And the last time I was listening to Cater to You, I had one of those moments. I was like, I don't know about all that. So cater to me. I ain't taking off no cufflinks until you take down these braids. I am an album of all singles. I am swiping my card yet again. I am 2 facials from Nirvana. I am organizing my life via Notion. I am a packed out Google Calendar. I am declining all further invites. I am inviting you only to laughter. I am writing a new book. I am writing a new life. I am only beautiful on paper. I am healing in the white space. I am being born for the third time. I'm somewhere wet and fertile. I am replanting by the riverbed. I am blossoming dangerously green. I'm on my grandmother's floor, playing with the dog. I'm on my aunt's couch, crocheting through family gossip. I'm fielding questions of marriage and children. I am a husband and 5 kids all by myself. I am Epsom salt in a hot bath. I am unlearning codependence. I am unlearning independence. I am a week of snow days. I'm the only curriculum that even matters. I'm an HS patient. I am an auto-inflammatory butterfly. I am fighting my skin wound by wound. I'm losing. I am winning at everything unimportant. I am married to the mirror. I am something to nurture. I'm something to mother. I'm something to cater to, even if I must do it myself. So that's cater to me. The last two. So I'm gonna do Pac in the tub. I don't know if y'all have seen this picture. Should I find this picture really quickly? It's literally Tupac in the tub, like covered in gold jewelry. Let's see if I can find a link.
You can share if you want. I enabled.
Okay. Well, I think I could please ignore the Reddit comments, but Reddit has this photo. Let me see. Just for context, because it's technically in
Oh, okay. Okay. In the chat.
Yeah. Okay. Pac in the tub. Gold glints at the neck first, then spots his mouth crown by crown. Pinky ring bouncing off the brown of us. Precarity speckles the body. We do this often. We, two-tone gods of a flickering survival. Tendrils dangle from every hangable piece of us. Our chains made of a shine made in our image. Nameplates ring our necks like noose knots, and I wonder, do he glitter yet? Do he turn the right heads? Do he slim with a hunger for more, or is it ever enough? Surround him in ceramic and camera flash, and a bunch of shit can't nobody afford, but all the boys will reach for. All the boys be dripped out with the cable off, be draped in enough gold to feed Oakland and dear a Fenny. He got his 24 carats and a mule. Yeah, last poem. It's called Motions. I haven't had time to think of you as I've been tending to my plants. The sheer time it takes to dress for the garden can fill a morning. The sharp shears, protective gloves, the thick cargo pants I shimmy my thighs into. I section rows with thin twine, without distraction. I'm simply too healed for your pestering memory, just as I had planned. Simply too busy planting lavender, geranium, catmint, lungwort, sweet rocket, wisteria, sea holly, globe thistle, salvias, all flowers, all purple, your favorite.
Oh my gosh.
Thank y'all so much.
Wow. That was stunning. Thank you so much, Edith. It was really,
Thank y'all for having me.
really powerful. Next, I'd like to introduce Quentin Okoro. He's a Black, non-binary poet from North Carolina with a BA in creative writing from UNC Chapel Hill. They are a 2023 Tin House Summer Scholar, winner of the 2023 Anne Williams Burris Prize in Poetry, sponsored by the Academy of American Poets, and semifinalist for the 2023 Pablo Neruda Prize in Poetry from Nimrod International Journal. Their poetry is featured or forthcoming in Show Poetry Journal, poets.org, Nimrod, Driftwood Press, and Illumium, a journal of poetry and prose. Please welcome Quentin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Heidi, for that warm introduction. And thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to be reading 3 poems, the ones that will be included in the forthcoming issue of Adroit. And yeah, I hope you enjoy them. The first is called Initial Intake Appointment. I keep having these dreams where I'm being held by someone who loves me. I nearly froze to death at the age of 8 in a New York winter, the month my mother lost me and I lost myself to hands that talked playful but played too rough against the small of my birdish back. I sat navy blue and shining in the white sun on the steps of a subway entrance, patient in being missed, unsure of what the danger was, unable to look my mother in the face as she ran out of the womb of Brooklyn and into the daylight. Her gift to me then was shame and a bath to force the heat back into my bluing flesh. She poured the warm water over my head. In my dreams, the water shimmers with light above me, fragmented like grief in the wind, foamy waves cresting against the edges of my subconscious. A man I do not love yet tells me I hold my breath when I sleep, says he watched me dance from my side of the bed to the corner he stole into, says it looked like I was trying to keep from drowning, that at one point I begged for something from the bottom of my restless sleep, but he grew afraid and kept quiet as my tone became more and more insistent. In the morning, I do not ask him why he put his hand on my hip and pulled me toward him, because I did not want him to know I was awake. I'm feeling a lot better than I was a year ago. I promise I'm telling the truth. God hates a liar, or whatever I said to that white woman in the field of roaring blue plastic seats and LED screens huge and bright in my madness. Our team lost, but an hour before that, I fled the arena and begged alongside Jolene's victim in the Uber XL I called to accommodate myself in all my disappointment. I scorned that woman to hell. Maybe I really was sitting in her seat. I hope her kids cursed even the back of my head for gifting them her sullied mood and then vanishing into the ruined evening, my breaths crushed and laboring under a street lamp, the light cascading from above, almost like water rushing down the face of a mountain crag. I'm old enough now to know some things about myself. I know I am good at running away, and I am best at not caring about anything at all. I wish I cared more about horses. Sometimes I find myself awake in an endless field of sweet wild grasses, sunlight drifting into the spaces between my eyelashes and settling around my vision like snow. Running, not away, just for the heavy sound of hooves against the hard earth, my lungs filled with blood and blue effort, my back embracing the cool spring winds. I think I must have been a horse before I was a child, headed nowhere, not lost, not wanting to be found. untamed, glorious. Yeah, so I'm gonna just dive right into the second one here. It's called The Secret. My sister found out and was instructed to keep her mouth shut. And so she immediately told me, because of course she would. I swallowed her words with the purse of my lips and a cup of salt. She was fond of making suits out of stories and wearing them until the holes became large enough to devour any kind beast, until her tongue, threadbare, would finally quit gnashing against the back of her teeth or catching itself on kindergarten canines, sometimes long enough to manifest as an apology or the woolly underside of a sheepish grin. Years later, my mother, tired in an arterial way, fed up and fed up until she was bloated, her convictions stinking with doubt, her kitchen neglected under thick canopy of synthetic hair, spit it out and across the table. It sat in a heap of shame and saliva. No one wanted to touch it, but I watched it ooze and wriggle and remembered its rough, brackish journey down my own gullet those many years ago. Oh yes, we knew. And my mother's shuffling high laughter was enough to quell our discomfort, quiet the beast. Oh, he told you. And we nodded, grinning teeth inside red mouths, suddenly hungry for more of this sharp and pungent truth. Who, what, when, where, why, and how? So she told us, you have been raised by a man with very little. Yes, yes. The only thing my father ever had was his God and his other family. All right. I'm going to read just one more, although I think I might have time for two, but just one more. This one is called I Chose Again to Open the Door. Inside, there was a little boy rolling marbles in his palms, brown as bird feathers. He smiled at me, and I peeked my eye through the keyhole of his missing two front teeth. I could see my crooked, swollen body, vulnerable, twisting, splayed, raging against death who'd swaddled me in her silver arms. The child asked me who I was, and I was shaken by the sound of my own voice, as if the call had echoed off the walls of the shadowy corridor and returned to nest itself in my throat. I looked around. There was my sister on the wall, pinned into the blue regalia of her middle school graduation, gap-toothed and bug-eyed against the ochre-colored walls in my mother's house. There was another family portrait, one we hadn't yet taken when we lived in this moldy, teetering one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, the five of us stuffed like olives onto one king-size mattress. There was the grandfather clock, tick, 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 ticking, its dim echo flooding the dining room, pooling around my feet. There was my foot. There were my hands. There was my face at the top of the water. I'd seen this scene before. Yes, the roots of the willow tree boring into the bed of the river. Yes, the river's gentle push against my body, untethered under fractals of swimming moonlight. Yes, the moon. Yes, the moon. Yes, the everlasting moon. And there was the stuffed bear my father gifted to me on the night before my 8th birthday, when I looked so much like this young thing standing before me, now slurping and sucking on his marble with the urgency of a child relishing in the sweetness of a treat forbidden to him. He reached his hand out, offered me a red one, shiny like an apple. Thank you so much, everyone.
Quentin, thank you. That was such a journey that you took us on with each of those poems. I feel like I like these stories and I couldn't wait to the end, and then the end came and was stunning and surprising. Wow. Next is Melissa McKinstry, and Melissa holds an MFA from Pacific University. Her poetry has been nominated for Best of Net and a Pushcart Prize, and appears in journals including Beloit Poetry Journal, Rattle, Alaska Quarterly Review, December, Tahoma Literary Review, and Best New Poets in 2023. Melissa, we're delighted that you're here and that you're one of our scholars. Thank you so much for reading with us tonight.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and big thanks to the team at Adroit who've been so wonderful and welcoming to us and organizing the issue and the reading tonight. And congrats to all the other scholars and contributors to the issue. I'll begin by reading the two poems that are coming out in this issue of Adroit, and just add a quick note of gratitude to all of you out there who might be caregivers for someone in some way, whether it's someone in your own family or perhaps as a job, nurse or doctor or home care specialist or hospice worker. The caregiving community at large has been very important in my own life. In 1996, my son was born with an undiagnosed genetic disorder. And my family loved and cared for him for 26 years, but we couldn't have done it without this huge and vital caregiving community around us. And although he passed away in 2022, Charlie has left a legacy of pain, close attention to the moment, which he was an expert at. And so the first poem I'll read, which is coming out in Adroit, is called Showering My Son. Showering my son, now over 100 pounds, your soft body like the lead drape a technician places before an X-ray. Like Titian's Venus of Urbino, white and pink, sans all that hair, sans the sentience in the eyes. Every day for almost 24 years, my arms under your shoulder blades and knees. I scoop you out of bed, pivot you to the blue mesh chaise on wheels. Your 3 stomata, a constellation from throat to belly to bladder. Oh, the way plastic meets the flesh. Our little mystery, our science experiment, our boy. Let us wheel to the shower now. I'll sluice warm water over your chest, little tuft of hair. I'll lift each arm and rinse your musky man odor. I'll soap your groin, your legs, and your rocker bottom feet with those toes crossed for good luck. I'll shampoo your hair, a sort of translucence. I'll shave your chin, press a warm cloth gently to each eye, the whorl of each ear, the nape of your neck under the drake tie, and then the swaddle of towels, the wheeling back to bed, and we'll become after the bath. By Degas, the hairbrush and the awkward limbs. I'll lotion your knobby knees, thin shins, each little finger that has never held anything. I'll fluff your pillow, cover you with your soft old blanket, read you a poem. I'll be Frank O'Hara, made for the lunchtime ritual of the city, made for kangaroos, aspirins, beachheads, and beers. These things are with us every day, he says, made for the daily touch, for the reminder, you really are beautiful, he says. And the next poem is called Late Spring Epiphany, after the Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit. I'm always trying to paint that door. I never quite get it, she said, of the black square at her winter house in Abiquiu. always a shadow shifting, a ladder leading to sky. When she looked through a pelvic bone she picked up in the desert, she saw a ghost moon. And today I'm quiet as her bones and stones and black pearl oyster shells. Once I had a son. Once, when he was 4, before his tracheotomy, we were invited to float in a warm therapy pool. He was weightless as I swirled his thin limbs in slow circles and lines. He seemed to sleep through it all, but I loved it. His buoyancy, absence of straps and wheels, water flicker on his curly lashes, maybe a quiver of smile. He couldn't say more or or get me out of here, so I don't really know. I never really knew him. He kept himself to himself, maybe grew very small to survive. He was a dark door, a box of bones, a soft, gone tabernacle. And the next poem is an ode to springtime spaces in New York City and to my Beshert, and it's called On the Steps of the Met. It begins with an epigraph by Frank O'Hara. And in Frank's poem called Song, he says, "In a world where you are possible, my love, nothing can go wrong for us. Tell me." You deserve the gold scorpion on the turquoise ceiling of Grand Central as a lapel pin, and both library lions looming on their plinths. You deserve the Flatiron Building triangulating toward Madison Square Park. Surprise. Every sexy Eames chair in Soho, the Holland Tunnel's fluorescent tiles, blown bodies twining each Lalique wine glass in Park Avenue windows. New daffodils foregrounding falafel carts, Habibi. Each chic local stepping into the street before walk, striding on long legs and heels. The plastic bags snagging a dogwood's blossoms, all titillation. Less the beauty, more the eye. What's real? What's scale? Lex and 24th is the world's sweet navel, full of earthenware lamps, faux lambskin throws, and high cheekbones. The mezzanine of the hipster freehand is dim and close. At the Neue Gallery, my orange kimono blends into the larger-than-life foiled klimps guarded by a roomful of knights in armor. You deserve it all. I lift your visor. Behold, you, every ideal proportion of Vitruvian man I could ever imagine. For real. And my last poem is that I'll read this evening is an ekphrastic work. I'll put the link in the chat as well. It's after Vasily Kandinsky's painting called Dominant Curve. It's called Ways to Wear It. Put your arms through the sleeves of this Bauhaus swirl. Let it drape from your shoulders, a shawl of distraction in abstraction, Kandinsky's dominant curve. Feel the fine seams of your private mourning, the silky sway of teabag brown, sage green. Let yourself be satin amidst bisecting angles and arcs. You might find a hidden pocket. You might hold on to what isn't. When my son was young, no one knew why the toggle of his jeans didn't fit. I kept slippering down hallways to brush my teeth in fluorescence, the smell of hospital soap deep in my skin. Each day, a moving staircase of dread with a hair's breadth handrail, a repeating pattern of unpredictability, cut on the bias, selvage edged. His small misshapen head, tiny useless feet curved like lyres, little hands always infant dimpled. When he died 26 years later, he was still surreal. But let me tell you about his eyes. Blue riders, blue mountains, blue roses. He was the dominant curve of my life. Somehow Kandinsky painted it all. So I clipped a jigsaw of it together over and over after the after. The dining room table like a wall at the Guggenheim. This canvas, my favorite kimono. If this piece feels soft and worn to you too, pull it closer, shrug it up around your neck. It's quiet inside these colors, a place you can hear how things were. All those sharp pins and needles tacked these shapes together to be basted, then stitched, hemming in what I couldn't believe. I was going to live a life full of impossibly imperfect chaos, full of not knowing, full of my son's suffering. I was going to live a life designed by a dominant curve. Kandinsky said, everything starts from a dot. Thank you.
Oh, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing that work. I don't know if anyone else is just, I feel like this is a very magical night and we're not anywhere near done yet. It's just, it's so special what's transpiring in this Zoom space. I'd like to invite Majigama to read next. And Maja is the author of The Call of Paradise, which was selected by Diane Seuss as winner of the 2023 to Sylvia's Chapbook Prize. And Maja does have a full-length manuscript coming out, but not until next year. It was the 2023 Wandering Angus Book Award. And as I said, it'll be published, in 2025. She is the 2023 Shenandoah Graybill Gowan Award recipient for Virginia Poets. And her poems have recently appeared in Four-Way Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, The Offing, We Call to the Eye and the Night, an anthology of love poems by Arab Anglophone poets, and has poems forthcoming from Prairie Schooner and Shenandoah. She loves cardamom in her tea and saffron in her chocolate and rose water in everything. Please welcome Maja.
Thank you so much for having me. And wow, it's just brilliant to be here tonight with the contributors, with them just been calling us a cohort. What a great array of voices. And I'm actually just so inspired. Why is everyone saying my name? That's amazing. The poetry community has just been amazing to me over the past couple of years. And I have teachers and friends and poetry sisters here, and I'm honored and grateful. Thank you, Adroit. The scholarship means a lot to me. My family has deep ties to Egypt, and so I feel that sort of energy really personally. So I'll just start with the two poems that are coming out in Adroit this week. And the first poem is called Ruz, which is the Arabic word for rice. Ruz. Sometimes a sack of rice is full of rice, not filled with a breathing body. The body of a young girl transported to the safety of a mountain home, rocked by camelback away from her sieged city with every sway. Sometimes the concert halls are open, and the young girl is a young woman with Marcel waves, a gap in her teeth, and Kyrene clothes. Rice stops coming down the Suez Canal when the British seize the thoroughfare. She hears the mountains are misting over her city, back home as they do in the spring. The sleep of summer rooftops arriving in letters from cousins with a new country inscribed on the envelope. Sometimes pictures arrive of family in Hijazi dress, their new nationality, still a costume to try on, black silk in the summer. Some women will keep their white scarves. Some years they posed their sons for pictures, costumed them in stiff velvet Ottoman suits, child-sized swords belted to boy waists. Once a girl entered a wedding hall at midnight, a great aunt at her side, dark waves coiled in her hair in their borrowed country of Egypt. The bridal couple sat very still, propped up on a stage beneath floodlights. On every dressed table, there were pots of coffee, seeds, and sweets. A waiter gestured her over to the couple's moon-sized platters of feast rice. Thank you. And the second poem is called Countries Yet to Exist, just sort of very much about it reflects the theme also of the first poem of growing up in countries that are just sort of getting their footing, if you will, after the vacuum created by British and Ottoman forces leaving. There were countries yet to exist along the trade route into my own country. My family imported cigarette lighters, gold-plated pens and tea kettles, hand-painted with the bright flora seen on scarves worn in the Jeddah souk, imported from Central Asia. When I smoked my first cigarette, I lit it with a family lighter, nervous behind our new house, next to the villas of two uncles and an aunt who chose Egypt to reside in. Her empty villa conjoined ours, and her marble yard was washed daily should she arrive one day in her country. This habit I took to the West with the lighter and a dented teapot. 2. I remember every place I smoked as if it was plated with a rare element. In the Middle East, I rarely could smoke. Sometimes there were heavy crystal lighters and couture packs of slim cigarettes on trays brought around by maids in women's rooms within their family compound. And it was beautiful to be in this company, but we were loose. Loose women smoke. Loose women should marry. Loose women are unmarried. I love to say the word loose in Arabic. It wasn't a bad habit I packed with me to the West. I know now with every exit, I vanished from my country, breath by breath. Thank you. And if you'll indulge me, I am undergoing a bit of a bereavement. I was supposed to be in Saudi Arabia today and was going to beam in at 3 a.m., but a lot of the airspace was sort of compromised between what's going on in the north between Iran and Israel. And I just made the decision to be in the United States and came to celebrate a beloved friend's younger daughter getting married in Massachusetts. And when I landed, I found out my aunt in Saudi Arabia had died. So, this is how life is, right? But she's a Palestinian. So I just wanted to read a Mahmoud Darwish poem in her memory. She was buried this morning. She was from a refugee camp in Lebanon. This poem is called I Belong There. I belong there. I have many memories. I was born, as everyone is born. I have a mother, a house with many windows, brothers, friends, and a prison cell with a chilly window. I have a wave snatched by seagulls, a panorama of my own. I have a saturated meadow. In the deep horizon of my word, I have a moon, a bird's sustenance, and an immortal olive tree. I have lived on the land long before swords turned man into prey. I belong there. When heaven mourns for her mother, I return heaven to her mother. And I cry so that a returning cloud might carry my tears. To break the rules, I have learned all the words needed for a trial by blood. I have learned and dismantled all the words in order to draw from them a single word, home. And I'll just end with one poem that's about my mother, who is an American woman, very brave woman. She's spent most of the past half century in the Middle East, not her natural habitat, which is the Midwest and the Arizona desert. This is called Pool Epiphany. It's not coming out in Adroit, but I'll just share it with you in the spirit of this evening. My dreams always hold water, and in the morning I let water hold me as I float away from my mother's white pimpled calves. She swings them underneath as she sits on the swimming pool ledge, so that I feel her presence like a current as I begin to paddle on the surface, clumsily as I do in dream water, while my twin pulses by me underwater, pale blur able to hold her breath and dive. I am 5. I do not know how to be alone. Never was, not even in womb water, where I tread the waves of mother sound while wound tightly to another. Positioned heartward to leave our mother feet first, I center myself in the blue, chlorine water to stroke with the palm of the sun tracking me above. Underneath, for the length of the pool, my breath holds and holds until I forget my child-sick lungs, this girl vessel, and become so alone. Thank you so much for having me tonight, Adroit.
Thank you so much. And I just want to express our compassion for your loss. Majan, thank you for joining us and sharing those beautiful poems. Our final scholar for tonight is Aliyah Cotton. She's a queer poet of color from Reston, Virginia. She earned her MFA from Boston University, where she was a recipient of the Robert Pinsky Global Fellowship. Her work appears or is forthcoming in Emerson Review, Grub Street Literary Journal, Poetry, Prairie Schooner, Redivider, Rust and Moth, Salamander, Southern Humanities Review, and the South Carolina Review. She was nominated for the 2024 Best of Net Anthology. Please welcome Aliyah.
Thank you so much, Heidi. The first 2 poems I'm going to read are the ones that are going to be in issue 49. This first one is called Asthma. At King Street Station in Old Town, it is our income. My mother asks strangers for money as I hold her hand and my chest rattles behind the cardboard sign. When there is nothing for us to count in our box, I look instead to the dogwoods that guard the station gates and the daffodils that grin around the base of each trunk. 4 there, 6 there, and there. At Fairfax Hospital, it brings Sarah to me, walking in with a cookie and a wink every night for 2 weeks. Her scrubs are blue like Cookie Monster painted on the walls, and my mother's box of cigarettes and the round stickers on my chest. When I leave, Sarah says she never wants to see me again, and I do not understand. On Halloween night in the little girl's bedroom, it is the reason he pauses, to glance down at the wheezing, unabridged, churning in her frame, brittle as the twin bed on which she struggles. She can see shapes in the stipple ceiling, a dog, a flower, crescent moon, beach umbrella. What else? What else? At night, it's hard to breathe because I cannot remember anymore how her voice sounded in my lungs as she read to me. I think it was about a sun bear. No. A red panda. No. This next poem is called Evidence for the Necessity of My Removal by Child Protective Services. For example, there were holes in my mother's faded blue jeans, the edges frayed like the uncombed hairs lining her forehead. This is how she answered the door. For example, the contents of our refrigerator, beer an onion, 3 Capri Suns, and milk expired 4 days. The sky in my drawing hung black at the top of the freezer because there were no sky-colored crayons. Our walls didn't have pictures. What they did have were cockroaches. I wasn't old enough to be afraid, so I made a game of folding mail into paper planes, aiming for the poor ugly things. The corner behind the kitchen table looked like an airport. For example, I puffed on my inhaler and watched the unnamed smoke creep under my bedroom door as the music and the loud voices boomed down the hall. I knew never to call 911. For example, I remember my mother sitting on the sofa at night, doing coke and listening to Alicia Keys by the glow of the TV. We slow danced to it. Those were my favorite kind of nights. All right, this next poem is called The Lungs Remember Breath. It was hopscotch and scraped knees, yellow monkey bars and hands rubbed raw, hands that knew exactly the weight of a pine cone and what it meant to the fallen thing to be noticed and held and thrown back down again. And it was not caring that the grilled cheese was burnt, the charred crust caught between teeth, sneakers that lit up the dark like sirens, cicadas floating at the edge of a swimming pool, trash bags that flew proud as kites in wind that was still new, and squinting one eye shut to gaze into the navel of the moon, to ask her, are you an innie or an outie? And the promise not to tell a soul. Lyric in the sprawl of wound. The Christians are playing their anvils again outside the Planned Parenthood, and like the clanging things, I too am black and have been wrought. And so I grab a mallet to beat myself and feel what it's like to be heard. And the mallet can't believe what it's been asked to do. And the sound I make is out of tune and untamed, is reverb and flame, the way riot is flame, the way bloom and bud and blood are flame. And when they stop their play to watch me like I am the sun and might do anything to anyone, I realize this is the only way to live. To put your voice to song and wrap the song in fire. That is what is required. Event horizon. Sometimes I wake as a copperhead weaving night through the window. They keep a BB gun in the kitchen for me, but I am not afraid. And I am always singing the same song, voice wrapped in satin. Paint the gun black. Let your hands taste ambush. Sometimes I wake as the window calling the light and the bird song back into myself. A beautiful woman stands naked against my frame. Her face teeming with blush is dew dripping slow from my name. She closes the blinds when she's done. What if one BB weighed as much as a warm thought in growth, were as dense as the velvet dark? I think it would become a black hole, and I think you would not forgive me this time. But when I wake as myself, I too am a sky stretching his limbs, letting out that first and widest yawn, the one that can't be heard over the cannon of daybreak. Purple to pink to orange, a strong resolve to blue. This is my last poem. It's called Plastic Bag from Corner Store Laments the Self. When they finally find me, all sprawled in the limbs of this tall oak that can't look me in the eyes anymore. I'll ask that simple question of myself, where I might be taken or take myself when the power lines quit humming their work songs to the fading red and black and blue graffiti lining the underpass where I spent my youth grazing. Or when the moon turns blood red and maudlin and coughs me back up on the mangled Chesapeake shores. And when they ask why I'm there, I'll shrug my shoulders. And when they ask where I'm going, I'll quote the sky again. I learned at birth to smile where my teeth are not. And I learned after. Everything that opens is a mouth. Every mouth will spit you right out. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. To put your voice in song and wrap the song in fire, I think that's what you just did for us. It was gorgeous. Well, those are our scholars and a couple of our contributors, and we have one final contributor to close out this absolutely gorgeous night of poetry. Chloe Hunnam is the author of two poetry collections, The Lantern Room and The Tulip Flame, and a chapbook, Then Winter. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in the Yale Review, the Paris Review, and the Southern Review, among other journals. And her honors include a Pushcart Prize and a Sargasson Fellowship for New Zealand writers. A Kiwi American, she was raised in Auckland and currently lives in Texas. Please welcome Chloe.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. It's really special to be a part of this issue. Thank you, Heidi and Chris and all the wonderful editors at Adroit. And congratulations to the scholars. It's been amazing to hear you read. I'm totally blown away by your work. Thank you. I'm just going to read three poems. I'll begin with the two in the issue. And I was nervous because I haven't read these before, and this is these are the first poems on this subject matter that will be published. But I've just been so in awe of all of your work tonight that I'm not so nervous because I'm just been riveted by your work. So I live in Texas, and I've lived here going on 7 years. But I wrote these poems in September of last year when I was in New Zealand, which is where I grew up. And I hadn't been back to New Zealand since 2019. So it's really, really good to be there again. I was there for a month, and I was able to write there for the first time in quite a while. I'd just been through a lot in the years in between, including the loss of a very wanted pregnancy. And I really hadn't been able to write much of anything for a long while when I landed in Auckland. And so the first poem, it was kind of marks a turning point at which I could feel something changing and that I might be able to write about this. It takes place in a city park, a park called Albert Park. It actually features in both of the poems. It's right in the middle of the city. It's really beautiful. And I just love to walk around it while I was there. And the spring equinox took place while I was there in September, because the seasons are reversed. And so this one's called On the Spring Equinox in Auckland, I Begin to Speak of Texas. So a voice returns. So it was winter's dusk, and now it is spring's. So the magnolias push a little more black into their pink, and the grass softens and cools in the city park. One doctor said about the law, it's really poorly written, probably on purpose, to not know where to turn, who to call. so the sparrows, so the bold pigeons. To be caught in a net, deliberately cast over a sacred sorrow. So a turning point. So on the other side of the world, I am walking into it. Just moments ago, these poppies were winters, this wind. The next poem is called Wish List in Auckland. And that's just all the many things when I'm there that I just try to soak up, but particularly for this time. Wish List in Auckland. To see green again from the inside. To see how the trees in Albert Park draw the rain closer just before it stops, as if to speak to it alone. To find a form, a way to unknot the music of an undying Texas autumn that doesn't hurt so much, that doesn't require the use of my teeth. To lift an hour out of silence, like a stone out of a pond, even if to place it back in at the end. And the sparrows, free as ever, busy as ever, calling swift assemblies on the chill grass in the noon mist. I'll end with this one more. This poem features my dog. Her name is Phoebe. She is a 13-year-old Labrador. And anyone who knows me knows I'm completely obsessed with my dog. So if she comes into a poem, it's very special to me. I always, she's only been in a few of my previous poems, but to me, the more she can come into, the better. Anytime Phoebe's in a poem, they're the ones I most like to read because I'm just she's an amazing gardener, and she follows me from room to room, and she likes to sit in the doorway. So I wrote this one also in Auckland, but it's set in Texas. Sorry, my light is out there. There we go, that's better. Okay. It's called Beginning of September, Texas 2021. I threw up so forcefully that it knocked the bucket from my hands. When I stood, I swayed. In the shower, looking down under running water, I whispered, "Grow, grow." My dog kept watch, always so close, always facing out toward the door. She is the gold inside my aura. The sorrow to come was completely its own shape and made worse by the obsession of strangers circling it madly, dizzying me. I held fast to the name I chose. With my eyes closed, crying felt like running, lost in pounding rain. Thank you, thank you. It's really, really, really special to be with you tonight. And really happy to be honored to be with you in this issue.
Chloe, thank you so much for sharing that very poignant work with us. We're honored to have all of these voices. This was really a beautiful evening of poetry and people and poets, and we are blessed and honored to be publishing this work as well as a lot of other great writers come Thursday. So stay tuned, look for the Adroit Journal on Thursday. And tomorrow we have a reading featuring 7 of our prose writers, including 6 of our prose scholars, our Cisco scholars. So we hope to see you tomorrow night. We hope to see your comments and thoughts on our work on Thursday. And thank you to the Adroit staff for your many, many hours as volunteers reading and helping bring this reading together, and all the work that is done behind the scenes to bring this journal to life. Wishing everyone a good evening, and thank you for your time.